Welcome to the Plant Orlando podcast, brought to you by OCPN, a collaborative network of churches that are training and sending leaders and multiplying churches. We want to see Greater Orlando saturated with the gospel. We want to see every man, woman, and child have repeated opportunities to hear, see, and respond to the gospel. And we believe continual church planting is essential to see this kind of movement in our city. Today on the podcast, we have Kenny Ortiz, who is part of our second finishing cohort back in 2023, 2024. Welcome to the podcast, brother.
Bro, thanks for having me. I can't believe 2024. I can't believe it's already been 2 years since we finished the cohort.
Yeah, wild. Time flies, but
I
it's
know.
so good to have you on here. I'm excited for this conversation today and for you to be able to share some of your story. Yeah, man.
Thanks for the opportunity.
First up, I would love to hear, man, what do you love about Orlando?
There are I saw this question. I've been thinking about it. There's a lot. There's two things that there's one. I'll give you a place and then I'll give you a thing. My favorite place, I know this sounds so basic. I just love being near Disney. I know it sounds super not cool, not hipster. I don't have a cool coffee shop to give you. We love from my house, like you could be at Disney in like 12 minutes. And I love, our family loves it. We love being in the shadow of Disney. But I think with that comes, I think my favorite thing about Orlando, demographically speaking or culturally speaking, is the amount of people that live here from everywhere. And that's largely informed by Disney, but there are other elements too. The number of people that just have come here over the years from everywhere. I'm just on my street. It's I got Brazil, Venezuela, Connecticut, Seattle, North Carolina, Pennsylvania. Like everyone on my street, not one person is from Florida, and it creates a unique, diverse culture that I really have a great affinity for.
I love that, man. And you're not alone with the Disney thing. Like, I mean, I would, maybe venture to guess at least a quarter of the city, if not more, that are probably here because of Disney.
Yeah.
Because they love Disney,
Yeah.
and they love being in the shadow of Disney. Well, as have lived here in Orlando, and we'll get into your background in a little bit, but you've lived here in Orlando for a while, and I'd love to hear, as you are here for these last few years, do you have a favorite restaurant? Do you have a favorite coffee shop? What are some of your favorites? Maybe on the west side of town where you're planting.
Man, on the west side of town. Okay, in Hamlin, right not far from where our church gathers, there's a little Greek spot. Um, that I think it's called. Oh gosh, I think is it called the Great Greek? I think it's called the Great Greek. Um, like that's one of my favorite, like Lebanese, Turkish, Mediterranean. That's I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's pretty. It's in the competition, and it's a great little spot. So we've been doing a thing every Sunday after church. I announced that we're going to go to lunch. And so for a while, it was Torchy's Tacos, and then it was Maple Street Biscuit Company. But for the last few months, it has been the Great Greek. And so every Sunday, we kind of like infiltrate that place, and it's kind of been our favorite spot. And then in Winter Garden is a great new coffee shop called Deeply Coffee, owned by some guys that we know. And anyway, those are my favorite spots.
Do you and your wife have a favorite date night spot?
We go to Disney. We go to Epcot for dinner. And like our favorite date night is we go ride one ride, have dinner, and then leave Disney. Like that's that's the pass holder life.
Yeah,
That's probably that's probably our most common date night.
that's awesome. That's one of the perks of living in Orlando, right?
Hmm.
Got to take advantage.
That's right.
Cool. So tell us about your background. Where did you grow up? How did you come to faith in Christ?
I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I was born and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Go Birds. And so we didn't go to church at all. And then I met a guy named Jim Roach, um, who sat next to me in class in seventh grade. I was 12 years old, and he started telling me that he went to church, and I was like, okay, whatever, dude. But he was like, yeah, you should come to church. And I was like, why? And he's like, I think I stumped him. He's like, well, because there's a lot of pretty girls at church. Like I guess that's what you say when you're 12. I don't know. But I was like, okay, I guess I'll go to church. But he was like just trying to be an evangelist. He was just trying to get me to come to church with them. And so the Roach family really became the instrument that God used, particularly my friend Jim, his mom, Robin. She would pick us up from school every Wednesday. We would go back to their house. We would have dinner. We'd hang out. She would drop us off at youth group, and then she'd pick us up and then in the minivan on the way back, we'd talk about what the sermon was about at youth group, and then she'd drop us off. And that was our Wednesday night rhythm for almost 6 years. I mean,
Wow.
and those 20-minute minivan rides on the way home were profound in my life. As silly as or small as that may sound, to be able to sit in a car with an older believer and just have conversations with her about biblical content, biblical ideas, was really life transforming. And Robin Roach really discipled me and the other guys in that minivan on the way home for
That's
20 to
awesome.
25 minutes every Wednesday night. Eventually we got driver's licenses and we would drive ourselves. But even after we got driver's license, I would still drive to their house, have dinner with them every Wednesday, and then drive the youth group. My senior year of high school, I still had dinner with them every Wednesday night. So yeah, God, that was it, man. In that process, and pretty early on in that process, I met Jesus, changed my life, and pretty early on, I really had a passion for wanting to like study the Bible and just teach people. And so I launched the Bible study at my school as a freshman in high school, and it grew like numerically pretty large size at one point, like over 100 high school students attending this Bible study I started at my school, which was
Wow.
just like crazy. And I didn't know what I was doing. And I remember my youth pastors being like, dude, I think you should be a preacher. I think you should maybe even be a church planter. Like I remember the seed of that being planted in my little 15-year-old brain
Wow.
in high school.
That's incredible. At what point did you feel like, yes, I'm called to ministry? Was that during that season of high school, or was it after high school that you felt like, yes, I'm for sure
Yeah.
called into ministry?
It was during that season. It was kind of a slow, gradual process that kind of started. And then my youth pastor, Rob, who was also discipling me and mentoring me, was kind of like saying things like, you should consider this kind of idea. He did a really good job as a youth pastor of getting young men in our church together, regularly on Saturday morning to do kind of like leadership development, specifically for young guys that he thought maybe could step into vocational ministry. And several of those guys have throughout over the last 25, 28 years. Some of those guys have walked away from faith tragically. But some of those guys have stuck with it, and it's been really cool to see them kind of run that race. But by the time I got to my senior year of high school, I was already thinking vocational ministry as a long-term option.
Wow, that's awesome. What a great picture of discipleship
Yeah.
that Rob, just faithfully invested in you guys as young men. That's incredible. Tell us about your family.
I have been married now for almost 6 years. I got married later in life. I was in my late 30s. All my friends got married way sooner. But I was the single guy in my 30s. But I met Milena. She's almost a decade younger than me. And so it would have been illegal if I married her in my 20s. So I guess it's good that I waited to my 30s. But no, we got married. We're almost 6 years. We have 3 kids. Um, our kids are, 4.5, 2.5, and 8 months. So basically every other summer we've had a kid. In our marriage, and it is super sweet. My wife is born in Washington State, raised in Houston, but we met in Minnesota. So I had been in Orlando for 4 years. I moved to Minnesota. I was there for 6 years. I was a professor and a pastor there, and I met Milena while I was there. She worked at the college that I was a professor at. Um, she was actually she had actually been a missionary for 1.5 years in France, went overseas, came back, and she was finishing her master's and doing some training with the intention of going back to France full time as a missionary. She had worked
Wow.
with Muslim refugees in South France, and I derailed her calling. So I feel obligated to train up missionaries since I pulled one off the field. But we got married, and it has been a great journey.
It's awesome. So how did you find yourself jumping into OCPN? Moving back to Orlando, jumping into OCPN?
I guess the blame or the credit, whichever way you look at it, would go mostly to Caleb Brazier at the Grove Church in Claremont. But I think you would be the close second, maybe some credit and blame in the process.
I'll take it.
I was there for I was here for 4 years, and I loved Orlando. Moved away because I had this a really great opportunity. I loved my time in Minnesota, and really felt like we could stay there for a long time. I had an opportunity, a job opportunity that would have been a long term. And Milena said to me one night, or through the entire 6 years I lived in Minnesota, Caleb Brazier would call me regularly, or I'd call him. We would talk at least once every few months about like, hey, you should consider moving back. You should plant a church here. You should, one day, like, kind of generic. but always like, one day, you never know, God might bring you back. And that was just like constantly being sprinkled in from Caleb.
He was just keeping the dream alive, man.
That's right. He was stoking it. Um, you know, I had this job opportunity, and it was going to be more of a kind of a long-term thing, and I actually said yes to it. And then Milena was like, we were talking about night, and she said, if we do this, if, we could stay here. We love our church, we love our community, we love our little townhouse, we love our 2.5% mortgage interest rate. We're really, God was really kind to us. And she was like, this could be great, but like if we say yes to this, that means we're probably going to be here for a long time, if not for life. And that probably like kind of, I'm paraphrasing, she didn't say exactly like this, but like this basically kind of ends the dream of going back and planting a church in Orlando, or working with the Grove Church, working with your friends back there. And I thought about that for a couple days, like my wife's voice going through my head. I'm in the shower. I'm thinking about it. I'm driving everywhere I went. I was thinking about that for several days. And then just finally, so I called Caleb and was like, hey man, like I'm thinking about, I've actually already technically said yes to this. And he was just like, he's like, well, funny enough, I actually just had lunch with Gabe Forsyth at Mosaic. I mentioned your name, and they're starting this thing called OCPN, and they have this cohort, and they're helping guys church plant, and like you should really do this. And I was like, oh wow, that's interesting. And then just over the course of like a very 3 or 4 weeks, several logistical things just kind of fell in place very quickly, and it just the Lord made it clear, and that was basically by early March of 2023 that we should move to Orlando and church plant and do OCPN. So yeah, we sold our house in June, moved here in July of 23, started OCPN in September of that year, and we were off to the races.
Yeah. And how did the cohort help you in the planting process?
I think this is probably the thing I most underrated. Like coming in, I just didn't really consider like that it would be like cohort, great, yeah, some connections and friendships, yeah, sure. I didn't really think about it, but the cohort was, I think the thing I most didn't realize I would get is a group of guys that could really sharpen my perspective on some things. I think it's easy to be idealistic. And so I think in the cohort for the 9 months, the content and the conversations, like the content itself was good, but I think even more than that, having like, having someone like Ben Bailey come on a Monday, we share content, but then grabbing lunch with Ben later in the week or at another time and kind of like hashing out that content even more in a more custom way, more specific way. Or doing that with Caleb, or doing that with Joel Kaufman or Jay Mudd. Like the guys that I had lunch with over the course of that year and had conversations with that really either really reinforced, I think, good ideas that I had, or really helped to kind of like push back on some ideas that I'm like, that's overly idealistic maybe. I think that was probably the most helpful thing. But there are other things too, but that stands out to me the most.
Well, tell us about Horizon City. What's the vision for Horizon City? What's the area that you're planting in, and what's the need there for this church plant?
I love Horizon City. This is the church that I had the privilege of being a part of for the last 18 months now. It's crazy that it's been 18 months. We launched in October of 24 with the vision. Horizon City, the name has kind of a double meaning. One is the, we are, there's a great city on the horizon. In Hebrews 11, Abraham looked forward to the city that would be built not by human hands. We're all headed for a city, and a part of my ethos, I think, is to really be shaped by the future city. I think some of my theological convictions, I think eschatology kind of shapes my idea of ministry maybe more than the average. And so not that others are bad. It's just, I'm a little bit distinct or a little bit different in that maybe in some ways. And so that's a big part of it, really thinking about the future city that we will all live in one day. And we want that future city to break into this city. We want heaven to invade earth. And so that kind of idea. And so there's a great city on the horizon, but also the area we are in is called Horizon West. And so Horizon City Church has a double meaning. Horizon West is just west of Orlando area, just northwest of Disney. It's technically the kind of the southern end of Winter Garden. It's a part of the Winter Garden zip code, but it's unincorporated Orange County. It's not a part of the city of Winter Garden. So it's a little bit of no man's land. It's one of the fastest growing suburb communities in America. 20 years ago, it was about 2,000 people or less lived in the area that we now call Horizon West. Today, it's about 68,000. So we've gone from 2,000 to 68,000. And the West Chamber of Commerce is estimating that it will hit about 120,000 by 2030. So they're expecting it to double in size again over the next 4 or 5 years. By the end of 2030, which is obnoxious because traffic is already a disaster, but we'll see how that goes. And then what we're seeing though is a spillover effect westward. So if you go just west of Horizon West, it's no man's land. It's dead orange groves, or was, in between 429 and 27, those two freeways. And the Lake County, Orange County border is kind of right there. Well, that area is been nicknamed Wellness Way. And there's all these houses being built in kind of west of Horizon West. And so like right now there's I think the estimates is about 4,000 people live in the area that's called Wellness Way. The estimates is that by the end of 2030, it's going to be somewhere in the 30,000 range. And so like the growth in Western Orlando is just obnoxious. I mean, that's the only word I could come up with. And so I heard Tim Keller say this years ago: if you're not sure where to go, or you're not sure where God's taking you, just go where God is bringing people. So the droves of people that are coming to this area. And so you've got new coffee shops popping up, new gas stations and houses, and a new freeway exit just went in right by my house. And so my wife and I, we bought a townhouse right in the middle of what's Wellness Way. Phase 1 of 6 phases. We're just like we're going to plant ourselves in this area as it grows and just be here. And most of the people moving here are not from Florida. 75% of the community are from elsewhere. And we have a huge Brazilian population. There's like a Brazilian of them.
Yeah.
Sorry, just let that lay. Anyway, so my wife, that was so dumb. I don't know why I said that. But anyway, my next door neighbor doesn't speak English. So my wife and I, Milena, just bought a book on how to speak Portuguese. And so we're like trying to learn and because like we want to invite them, but like they don't speak English, so it's weird. Milena took them this like for Easter, some Easter bags with candy they have 3 kids next. So we're trying to like love our neighbors, but like they don't speak English, so a couple words here and there. Anyway, so we just have there's a huge Brazilian population in Horizon West and Wellness Way. Yeah. It's like 40-50% of our area is Brazilian.
Wow.
And so so not only do we need churches, we need we need Portuguese speakers, which I am not, and I need to. So we're trying.
Yeah. Well, tell us how are you seeing God at work so far in these past 18 months?
Let me tell you a quick story. Just let me tell you one testimony, because I think this is a microcosm. I won't use name. I'll use faux names. And so got a guy named Mike. His name's not Mike, but I'm going to use Mike anyway. So Mike, not a believer. He's in his early 30s, has struggled with various things, and has never been a part of church. He's a gamer, plays games online, and he's gaming with some guys in North Carolina that tell him about Jesus. And so he's wrestling. And so then he decides to be a part of a local church. And so he shows up on a Sunday and was like, hey, I need to learn more about Jesus. And so I'm like, okay, that's easy. That was a layup. And so then I go to Cracker Barrel with him on Wednesday, and we sit at Cracker Barrel for 4.5 hours, and we just talk through the gospel. We talk through the veracity of Scripture. Why do we trust the Bible? He's asking me all these kind of apologetic type questions. What do you believe? Like, why do you believe Jesus rose from the dead? And at the end of it, he was just like, yeah, I think I want to be a Christian. And so that was a year ago. And so I've walked with him. Like he was a part of a men's small group we launched last summer. I took some guys through the book of Mark. He was a part of that. We baptized him. And like a year later, he loves Jesus and he's thriving. And it's been so cool to watch. And so we've got that. And then on the other end, we've got another family. I'll call them Bill and Sally. Bill and Sally, they've been part of multiple churches in our community, but have felt like they would say they experienced a lot of church hurt. And they had been totally disconnected from a church for over 3 years. Pretty much, COVID hit, they left the church, and then they've kind of bounced around, and they were a part of one church for a little bit. And And so, but they just applied to be members, and they're just at our house on Sunday. They've been attending since September, and they've been very slow to kind of enter into the fold because they just didn't trust. And that's something I didn't realize. Some people know the statistics around Orlando. Orlando is one of the most unchurched, if not the most, de-churched cities in America. So like we lead the nation in people who used to go to church. Not a stat that I'm excited for us to lead the country in.
Yeah, we were, in the top 10 unchurched and de-churched cities in the U.S. back in like 2018 when Barna did that study.
Yeah.
So I can't even imagine what it is now, post COVID.
Michael Graham, he's been on the podcast. Michael Graham and Jim Davis, they're pastors in the area. They wrote a book. If someone's not, the book called The Great Dechurching, and in that book they talk about, it's just a book packed with great insights and stats. But they talk about how moving is a pastoral emergency is the language they use.
Awesome. Yeah.
Like when someone's connected to a local church and they move either to a different, even if they stay in the same city, but they move, the probability of them kind of stopping going to church goes up dramatically. Every time someone moves, probability that they fall away from church connection is significantly higher than the possibility of them connecting to a church. And so if you're in an area where people are moving, you have lots of people moving here to this area who maybe were a part of churches in the past, but they move here and they just never get connected to a local church. And so that has kind of skewed our statistics as to why we have so many de-churched peoples here. People who live here who would say, yeah, I used to go to church, but I stopped. I've realized it's not as much people who used to go to church locally, although that exists too. But there's a lot of people who used to go to church somewhere else. They moved here and then never got plugged in to a local community. And so it didn't dawn on me how many people fall in that category. And so when I first moved here, my thought was like the first guy I was talking about who came to faith, like I want to plant a church. I want to be an evangelist. I want to reach the lost. I want the unsaved. Like that was my priority. And that's, to be honest, kind of like the sexy church planting thing. Like, and I don't mean that to be crass, but like that's what people are attracted to. I want to reach the lost. What I didn't realize is that God would bring us a bunch of families who were believers, but just were feeling orphaned. We have, most of our families, I look around our families at our church and, the kind of, the 20 to 25 main kind of households that really make up our church community. Most of them are families that were not connected to a local church and then connected to us and hadn't been connected to church for a long time. There's another family in our congregation. They had been a part of a church plant in our community that existed for several years that then kind of shut down abruptly. And they were like devastated by it.
Yeah.
And the way it was sort of like they announced it on a Sunday after church. They're like, okay, next Sunday's our last Sunday. Bye. It was just very abrupt. And they were really devastated. And like, so they hadn't connected to a church for like, a year and a half or 2 years. And then they started coming to Horizon City and sort of like, but there was a slowness to it. They were nervous because they didn't want to be like the rug get pulled out from under them again. Like, are you really going to survive? Are you going to make it? Like, and I think I didn't realize, like, I think in church planting, we're so often thinking about the lost, which is good. We should. I think I underestimated the value in existing Christians who were disconnected, who need to be discipled, who need a church family, who need a pastor to love them well, other believers to love them well. Like that's actually is equally important as the lost. And in my mind going into it, it wasn't, but it has shifted significantly over the last, year and a half.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a both and. We want to reach the unchurched and the de-churched. And that's what we say at OCPN. Like we're trying to plant churches to reach the unchurched and the de-churched. Yeah. Well, so tell me, as you have, these past several years, gotten to know people in Horizon West, you've got, getting to know your neighbors and also shepherding the people that are coming to Horizon City. What have you discovered about the people in this area? What are their dreams? What are their fears? What are their idols? And how does the gospel give an answer to those things?
Oh man. I think the number one idol, there's two main demographics. I mean, there's a lot of demographics. There's two groups that primary stand out. I call them there's the Disney folks and then there's the political refugees. Like those are the two. You have people moving here because they want to be close to Disney. They want to live, they want to play. And they may not even be like super Disney people, but they just like, They don't want to live in cold weather anymore. They want to be, they want warm weather. They want to live on vacation.
Yeah.
And so, and because of the housing situations, like you could sell a house in Connecticut for $700,000 and buy the same size house or bigger for 400 or 500,000 here, and so like people are able to, you could sell a house for 800,000 and buy that same house here for 550. And so there's this like unbelievable, like people are coming from the Northeast with the ability to acquire kind of like their dream home for the first time in their life and live near Disney and have I'm on vacation 24/7. They want happiness. And I think the idol for that group is thinking that a location or weather or an amusement park brings you happiness. And so one of the visions of Horizon City, we have kind of 5 tenets a part of our vision. The first one is that I want every member to possess steadfast happiness inspired by the grandeur of God. People want to have happiness inspired by the mouse, by Magic Kingdom, by vacation, by warm weather. No, like that stuff doesn't make you happy. And I think I've had enough conversations with people who they feel disenfranchised or they feel jaded. Like we moved here thinking we'd be happy and realize that we're not. Because at the end of the day, steadfast happiness, true joy is only found in Christ and Christ alone.
Yeah.
We have a number of Disney CP students. It's funny because we're close to the Disney college program housing. For the people, Disney has an internship program. They have like 8,000 interns that live and work at Disney World. So we've had a bunch of them come through our church. They're here for a semester typically. And the number of them that will say, I thought I was coming to do a 1 month or a 1 semester internship where I was just going to be like loving life. And here I am cleaning vomit at the bathroom of a hotel and working crazy hours, and I'm exhausted, and this is not happy at all. And I'm just like, yeah, and like I've not usually said this immediately out loud, but in my mind, I'm always like, yeah, because you've trusted in the wrong thing. And so the idol. So I try to use the language regularly of like genuine happiness, true happiness, steadfast happiness, happiness that stays despite disappointments. Like I try to use that language a lot in sermons and kind of in our verbiage to kind of try to intentionally, kind of resonate with that idol in people. The other group that we see a lot is I call the political refugee. This is people who are politically conservative, Republican, who were in a blue state, and they are coming to Florida because, this is the land of the free and the land of no income tax, and DeSantis is, our great savior. I'm being hyperbolic, but like, there's this group of people, and what I have found with those people is that their idol is they're just, a lot of them are just cultural Christians. Maybe they were a part of a church back wherever they came from, but really in their minds, it's like I literally have had people say things like. I vote Republican. I'm pro-life. I've never murdered anyone. That makes me a good Christian. Like wait a minute. No. You don't understand the gospel. Like it's very typical. It's funny. The stereotype is that in the South, there's a lot of that in the South, the cultural Christianity. Places like Alabama and South Carolina, they get a reputation for having a lot of cultural Christians, but cultural Christianity actually exists. It exists everywhere in the United States. It's just in more pockets. So we had it in Minnesota. It just was a lot less of it. And what we're finding is some of those cultural Christians are fleeing their northern, states that are Democrat run in their minds. That's bad. And so they're coming to Florida because Florida has become so, moved to the right. And in their minds, like, this will be the solve. If I could just get out of liberal Minnesota and get to conservative Florida, then everything will be okay. Yeah. And I'm like, no. That doesn't make everything okay. And like, I'm politically conservative. Like I'm okay. We agree there, but no. Your hope should not be there. And the idol of conservative Christianity, or sorry, conservative politics being equated with conservative Christianity. And I'm like, no. These are two different things. And I find myself in sermons pushing back on that group quite a bit, which is just funny. There's a guy in our church who's very politically conservative, like an extreme. And I've pushed back quite a bit on Sunday morning saying like, hey, like we have to be very careful that we don't idolize politics. We have to be very careful that do your civic duty, vote. Yes, that's good. I'm not saying that's bad, but do not misplace your trust in politics. And I've even pushed back in sermons. I've said things that maybe a little provocative. I said like listen, like Ben Shapiro should not be the person we listen to on every issue. Like I appreciate Ben Shapiro. I think he's got some good stuff to say, but he's not a Christian. He's a Jewish person. Like he's wrong on many things. I said that in a sermon, and I got blowback. Someone was like, like, are you liberal? I'm like, no, I'm a political conservative. He's like, well, why do you bash conservatives so much? I'm like, I'm not bashing conservatives. I'm bashing the idol that many conservatives hold to. And like, I don't feel the need to bash the idols that a lot of liberals hold to, because we don't have a lot of liberals in our church, to be honest. Like, we don't have a lot of that. The idols that I'm seeing in our community in Horizon West and Wellness Way is the land of right wing love. And I'm like, and I think in God's kindness, I can say to people, I'm one of you. And that it's easy, because if you're on the left, people will go, well, you're just a lefty, I'm not gonna listen to you. You're woke, whatever. Like, they'll say that nonsense. But like, no, I'm like, I can say, no, I'm one of you politically, but I think the way you're doing this is wrong. I think you're just an idol. And that, I think in God's kindness, that's kind of given me some like cachet with people that are politically conservative, and gives me an opportunity to kind of challenge people in our community.
Yeah. Well, tell us, what are your biggest needs as a church plant right now? What are your kind of top 2 or 3 things that you're asking God for right now?
We really need a better location. We currently meet at the movie theater, the Sinopolis movie theater. It's been really good in some ways. It's not a good fit. There's a lot. Movie theaters are hard for several reasons, and so really trying to figure out what's the next. But there's just not good locations in our area, and so we also don't have a worship leader. And so we've had we literally play an iPad. We recently have had some people that play music that they've been able to rotate and do a little bit. So one of our members, she sang to tracks. So we didn't have musicians, but she was able to just sing along to tracks. That was good. There's a couple in our church that they've led a few times for us. There's another couple that might be able to lead. Like, so we've got a couple guys that are in the mix. It's just not been consistent and not always been great quality. And so that, I think that's a pretty significant detractor for the Sunday morning worship gathering experience. And so those are 2 big things. Yeah. And then I think, I'm still in the fundraising process. So, I've got to raise another $50,000 over the next, 8 to 12 months. All in, I think we've raised like $145,000 we've raised over a 3-year period. And so God's been really kind. And I got to be honest, it's just exhausting after a while. It's just frankly just exhausting. And it's just easy to just go like, I don't want to do that anymore, Lord. And so, yeah, we need some peoples to come that would be willing to continue to financially invest. Those are our big 3 things. So that's all. No big deal. A building, a worship leader, and money.
Yeah, none of those things are too big for God, right? So yeah, if you're listening to this and you're a worship leader and you're feeling the call to jump in and help a church plant, get in touch.
Let's go.
And if you're listening to this and you have some resources and you want to support gospel work in Horizon West, get in contact with Kenny and support that. If someone is listening and they're interested in praying for you guys or financially supporting or joining you on mission, being a part of what God's doing there at Horizon City Church, what's the best way to connect with you guys?
Yeah, we have our website we have a page called Next Steps. So you go to horizoncitychurch.com. There's a Next Steps button. Basically, anything you might ever need what I tell people all the time, whatever your next step is with Horizon City, that's the page you're going to find it. So if someone wants to grab coffee with me or dinner with me and my wife, you can get that there. If someone wants to subscribe to our email list, you could do that there. Someone wants to financially give, you can do that on that page there. If someone doesn't know Jesus and wants to grab coffee with me and talk about what it means to follow Christ and why we believe he rose from the dead, why we trust in him and him alone. So, but whatever your next step is to connect with us, you can find that on that page there. And open invite. Anyone who wants to connect would love to do that.
That's awesome. Love that. Anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Yeah. I guess I would maybe this bold challenge. If there's churches listening to this in Central Florida that are not involved in church planting, I just want to challenge you and encourage you. Like, we need you in the game. In Horizon West, a Mormon temple just went up. They bought a huge piece of land, $2 million. They built this big building. A Catholic church just went up right off of 27 in the south end of Claremont, right near from my house. We got lots of great Catholic friends. But we believe some different things. And I look at the Mormons and the Catholics and others that are able to buy buildings and put up and with overnight attract people, because they have resources. I mean, the bottom line, it was money. And And I've had some conversations with pretty much every church planter in our ecosystem and other guys that have planted in our area of the last couple of years. I actually made a note to myself a couple of days ago. 15 church planters that I've had conversations with in our area, evangelical church planters. 13 of those 15 guys would say they are like, feel like they're drowning. They're like, they desperately need more resources, more help, more support. They're like, one guy has been going 10 years. He's like, I feel like we're still in startup mode. It's just like, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. It's just a constant. And like, at the end of the day, money doesn't solve every problem, but it does solve some pretty significant problems. And we need more money and more resources and more support in church planting in our community, like a lot more. And so if you're a church listening to this and you're not involved, I just want to implore you, exhort you to prayerfully consider radically, generously investing in church planting efforts, because I am thoroughly convinced the best way to expand the gospel in our community is more gospel preaching churches.
Yeah, it's a good word. Thanks, Kenny. Thanks for your time. Thanks for being on the podcast with us today. And man, I'm excited to see what God continues to do through Horizon City Church.
Thank you, brother.